I'm from the Netherlands, and I honestly wasn't aware. I didn't know that Canadians helped to liberate the Netherlands back in World War II. I didn't know until you guys commented that they did in some of my or under some of my videos. So today I'll be educating myself on this moment in time that we should all be thankful for as Dutch people, and I think we are. Now that I know, I definitely am. So let's go ahead and learn more about this.
The Netherlands in the spring. Beautiful. Flowers in full bloom, parks pristine, streets spotless. It's a far cry from what the same spots were like 70 years ago. The Germans had leveled the cities, murdered those who got in the way, and sent tens of thousands of Jews to be gassed in death camps. The Dutch who were left were starving after the 5 years of brutal Nazi occupation. By 1945, they were so hungry, some were eating tulip bulbs to stay alive.
The starved, rickets-ridden bodies of this Dutch family are witnesses to the treatment the Germans meted out to our friends in Holland.
That's when the Canadians arrived, blasting their way into towns like this one, Apeldoorn, crushing the Nazis, liberating the people. The Dutch have never forgotten, never. And this week, they'll be in these streets again, by the thousands, to welcome back some of those Canadians, now in their 90s, who gave them their country, their lives back.
So beautiful. Even though I didn't know, it's so good to know that, of course, a lot of people did. I don't know if it's a generational thing or if I just did not pay attention in history class. Must say that when I was younger and I did have history class in high school, I never really saw the value of it, which is a shame. But anyways, now I do, and it is beautiful to know that we're still honoring the Canadians who have fought and have died to liberate the Netherlands.
I've been coming here for 20 years, never ceasing to be amazed at the Dutch determination to say thank you.
The street with its pennants and Canadian flags is representative of many streets across the Netherlands right now, as the Dutch mark the major contribution that Canada played in the liberation of their country half a century ago.
I'm very young. I only heard stories from my grandfather and grandmother. But yes, they freed us 50 years ago, so that's why I'm here.
I think it's a love affair between.
Yeah, my grandfather, he wasn't really like there anymore to tell me about it because he had Alzheimer's when he was still alive, from like when I remember him. And my one grandmother who's still alive, I've asked her about it, but yeah, I don't really know if she wants to talk about it because I don't really remember her saying much about it, which I also understand. And I also think, yeah, she said that she didn't remember a whole lot about it because I think she was born in 1944. So that's also crazy to think about. But that's also why I don't have those stories from my grandmother or grandfather. So I personally don't have those stories, but I feel like for people like her who have had them, it would be good to continue telling them to the future generations, because hearing it on that like personal level does make, or what I can imagine makes a huge impact.
Canadians and the Dutch.
Well, 60 years is an awfully long time, but not long enough for the Dutch to forget the pain, the loss, the suffering, and the oppression of living under Nazi rule all those years during the Second World War. And not long enough either to forget the liberation and those who brought it to them.
It's a beautiful day. This is out of this world.
I'm feeling liberated.
107,000 people left this place on the trains destined for the death camps of Nazi-occupied Europe. 102,000 of them perished in those camps. On days like this, the Dutch come to remember what happened here more than 65 years ago.
The camp life was dominated by the train. The train was taking away 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 prisoners, and you prayed being not on the list.
Why do they never forget? Just listen to some of the stories we've heard over the years.
And I said, do you eat that every day? Sure. You want some? I'll give you a whole loaf. A whole loaf of white bread. I ran to the house and I planted it on the breakfast table and I said, here, look at it. Canadians are here.
Look at this street sign in an Apeldoorn suburb. If the name looks Canadian, it's because it is. A dozen streets in this neighborhood are named after one of the almost 8,000 Canadians who never came home from the battle. What was it about those young men who, through the generations, the Dutch won't stop thanking? Who were those guys?
George Beale was one of them, a major with the 48th Highlanders. Every few days he'd stop and write a letter home to his wife, Ruth, in Toronto. This is one of them. Here's what he said. My own darling, I haven't written you for 5 days. I didn't feel much like it, sweetie, as we were fighting again, and I was awfully busy, and we've been having a tough fight. At the moment, I'm sitting in a city called Apeldoorn, and the Queen's Palace is within 100 yards of me. That's the Queen's Palace, right over there. We're about 100 yards from.
It's always so crazy to me to think about that, yeah, this just actually happened, and that people were actually fighting here. I've also been to, like, I don't know what you call them, war zones, or yeah, places where they have fought in the World War, and when standing there, it's just so crazy to imagine that that was going on. But it does put everything into perspective and make you grateful for just having freedom. I personally went to Kamp Vught, which is or was fortunately a concentration camp. And we went there with, I think, elementary school, and biked there at the time, very Dutch. But so crazy to like see the ovens in person and just, yeah, everything. I don't know. It's just crazy to think it actually happened, because you almost can't imagine until you see it and are there.
But he might have been right here. We entered the town proper this morning after a big advance from the Isle River. I'm fine, Ruth, so don't worry, although I'm very tired. The enemy's running like the devil again, and we have to chase him.
The fighting was bloody. and the dying. But through it all, George wrote to Ruth about the love he had for his men.
He wrote this one on Sunday, April 22nd. I have fought and lived with those men for over a year, and to me they seemed as though they were part of my family. They never refused to go any place I ordered, and did everything I asked them to, cheerfully and willingly, knowing most of the time that I might be sending them to their deaths.
There were lots of individual Canadian heroes here, Army men like George Beale, but Air Force flyers too.
50 years ago, these fields near Nistelrode in southeastern Holland were home base for a Royal Canadian Air Force Spitfire squadron. One of those Canadian pilots was a 22-year-old chap from Lethbridge, Alberta, whose name was Richard Odette. Well, near the end of December 1944, Odette had flown more than 50 missions. But up until that point, he had scored no German kills. Well, on the 29th of December 1944, all that changed. When Richard Odette flew out of one of these fields, he flew right into the history books. Before he returned, he had shot down 5 German aircraft. No other Canadian pilot, no other British pilot had scored that many victories in one mission.
Meanwhile, frontline fighters broke through to capture key strategic locations. All this was happening as the Nazis were facing their final desperate days, until that last moment when the fighting and the dying suddenly stopped. 70 years ago this week, the war ended.
And here's what George Beale wrote to Ruth on that same day. You can feel the emotion in his voice. Darling, you couldn't possibly have any idea just what kind of a reception it has been and still is. The people go simply mad. And I had the honor, darling, of being the leading vehicle, my Jeep. Any town we went through, the people crowded the roads, and we had a most difficult time getting past them. They all wanted...
I can imagine this feeling. Like, what a great feeling this must have been after having starved. To then hear we're free. Yeah. I can't imagine. I don't know what to say. Like, that's crazy.
touch your hand or even kiss you, and they simply pelted us with flowers. My Jeep looked like a florist shop. It does make all the hardships worthwhile when you see the joy of these liberated people.
For this year's returning heroes, new medals from the local mayor.
Your memories, your thoughts guide us as we shape our future.
And new thoughts about an old battle.
Well, I was stationed here during the war as a Canadian Women's Army Corps, which I'm very proud of. And it brings back so many memories. And I always have a place in my heart for Holland.
Yeah, I also wonder now that she says that, even after you have won the war, as a soldier, how do you live on from that? I can imagine, or I can't. But yeah, the PTSD that you have. I also know someone who was in the military, not at that time, but from what he said also, yeah, it can be so crazy where you hear this loud noise and suddenly you think you're at the battlefield again. So yeah, lots and lots of respect for those people.
For Appledore.
And it's a great, great day, you know. For the little thing we did, we get so much, 1,000 times more time.
The Dutch people are so
The Dutch people are the best people in the world, and I mean it.
Wageningen just down the road from Apeldoorn, in that little building. That's where the Germans finally surrendered. These extraordinary pictures capture the moment.
To the Commander-in-Chief, 21 Army Group. These forces to lay down their arms and to surrender unconditionally.
And there at the table, Canadian General George Kitching, distinguished then and just as distinguished when I chatted with him at the same table 50 years later.
How do you feel when you come back in this room?
That's the same person. Like, I don't know. How? Like, I keep saying I can imagine, but I can't. I literally can't. That this actually happened, and then 50 years later, like, this is the same man. I don't know why that blows my mind so much, but...
It's almost as if they're ghosts. As if you are the German, the opposite side of the table, Peter. It was full of people then. Any movement, it was a very quiet room. And in spite of the fact that there were 30 Canadian reporters, they were quiet.
The general is gone now, and so are many of the men who fought with him. But the ones who are left, the ones who still come, the ones the Dutch, young and old, still so adore, are here with their memories. The ones that hurt, the ones that leave them quiet, and the ones that somehow make them smile.
I've never felt that I sacrificed anything to be part of a liberating army.
There were so many Canadians who lost their lives here in the Netherlands. How did you handle that on a day-to-day basis?
I put it out of my mind altogether, but nonetheless I cry when I go to the cemetery and see my friends' graves.
I never learned to cry. You just feel it inside.
What does it mean to you guys to be remembered the way you are here in this country, the way they look at you, the way they react to you?
Well, it's 70 years ago that we were here, but still, the kids are still enthusiastic about what we did here 70 years ago. And I love to see kids, the way they greet us and the way they look in such admiration at us, you know?
Really, it was something.
Which they deserve. They have, I don't know how to say this in English, but like triple deserves. I don't know how to say this.
To feel the happiness, the joy of the liberation.
I asked the people I was staying with, what is this touching bit, you know? They asked permission to touch you, and I couldn't get over that, so they want to touch a liberator, and they want their children to touch a liberator.
20 years ago, I asked the then mayor of Apeldoorn why it was that the Dutch never forgot the Canadians. His answer was very simple, very direct. He said, you have to have been occupied to appreciate what freedom really means. And when you do, you never forget who gave it to you. That's why Canada is never forgotten here. Never.
Yeah, that's what I think too, that if you really know what that was like, you'll never, ever, ever take that for granted. And I feel like maybe the newer generations don't realize it as much like I did. So it's easier to take it for granted, but really we shouldn't. And that's why it's important to tell these stories, and why I'm also grateful to you guys for telling me about it so that I can now know. Well, of course, I knew about World War II and that we weren't free at the time, but to know this piece of it also is really beautiful because of the connection that still to this day exists between Canada and the Netherlands, where I think you guys also told me the Netherlands every year sends tulips to Canada. So yeah, the respect from both sides is just beautiful to see. And also, I want to add that Polish people also helped free the Netherlands, because especially for any Dutch people watching, if there are any Dutch people watching, I think that's also not known enough. Whereas Canada freeing the Netherlands is maybe more known. I just personally didn't know. But the Polish people freeing the Netherlands is something that is also very important to talk about, because I feel like it's so unknown. And the only reason that I know it now is because in college I studied tourism management, and also did a minor on storytelling and experience design. And so with some other students, I had a project that I was doing for the Maciek Memorial in Breda in the Netherlands, a city in the Netherlands. And they wanted to attract especially more young people to the memorial so that they could continue telling the story. And so we helped them in how to do that. But because of that, I now know the stories of those Polish soldiers as well. But it's such a shame that that is so unknown in the Netherlands as well. And that's especially important as well because we have quite a few Polish people living in the Netherlands. So I think it would be good for more people to know that. Seeing that connection, and I don't know, for me, just put things into perspective again as well, because I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, some Dutch people can be a bit, negative, more negative than positive about just people coming into our country and Polish people. So I feel like it would help to, get that sense of respect more, because they have fought for our country as well. So, and they actually, at the time, couldn't go back to their own country. So it makes no sense why we would now say that we wouldn't want them in our country, you know? So anyways, that's a whole side note, but I thought, if there's any Dutch people watching and you didn't know, that was important to mention as well. And go check out the Maciek Memorial in Breda if you're from the Netherlands. Very interesting, very memorable as well. And even if you're not from the Netherlands, if you're ever in the Netherlands, I definitely recommend to check it out as well. But thank you again for recommending to watch this video. And thank you to all Canadians and Canada as a whole for liberating us, because who knows what would have happened otherwise. And we thank part of our freedom to you.